Hello. I have lived a long life full of challenges, joys, and lessons that only time can teach. Today, with my gray hairs and wrinkles that tell stories, I want to share something that may not be frequently discussed but affects many men and couples as we age. The reduction of the penis can sound surprising or even taboo to some. However, I firmly believe that talking about these topics is crucial to understanding that aging is not something we should fear, but accept with wisdom. Just like any other part of the body, the penis also changes with age, which can lead to insecurities, frustrations, or simply confusion. However, my story and my husband's have taught us that these changes do not have to be the end of intimacy or pleasure. When I was young, like any other girl with dreams, sex and intimacy were tied to physical vigor. I remember when I met the man who had become the love of my life. His beard dazzled me not only because of his physical appearance, but also the energy and confidence he radiated. In those early years of marriage, our sexual life was intense and exciting, which is normal in youth. However, as the years passed and our bodies began to change, so did our way of relating in bed. The first noticeable change was the decrease in firmness during my husband's erections. At first, we were both confused, thinking it might be temporary, but it wasn't. Time continued to move forward, and the erection no longer functioned as it once did. Sometimes it would come and fade away before we could even begin to enjoy intimacy. That's when I started noticing a reduction in size, something that can be impactful for any man or a couple who isn't prepared for it. I remember the first time we talked about it. My husband, a man always confident, began to avoid the topic of sex. I saw him emotionally distance himself, worried about not being able to fill as he once did. It was evident that he felt ashamed, something he had never experienced before. This broke my heart because I knew that the foundation of our relationship was not sex, but the love and connection we had built over the years. I took the time to research because I wanted to understand what was happening and how I could help him feel better about himself. I discovered that a decrease in penis size with age is a completely normal phenomenon. Over time, the body loses some elasticity, hormone levels change, and blood flow decreases, which can affect size and firmness. But what I learned most importantly is that these changes do not mean the end of pleasure or intimacy. I decided to talk to him one night after a quiet dinner. I sat by his side, held his hand, and told him I understood what he was going through and that he shouldn't feel ashamed. I explained that our bodies change with time, and it's normal. What truly mattered to me was not the appearance of his body, but the connection we shared. I wanted him to know that I loved him for who he was, not for his ability to maintain an erection. In that moment, something shifted in our relationship. We began to focus more on emotional connection than the physical act itself. We realized that pleasure didn't have to be limited to an erection. We explored new ways of touching, communicating, and enjoying each other. We started appreciating moments of intimacy differently. Long hugs, lingering kisses, and intimate foreplay that perhaps we had overlooked in our younger years. Over time, my husband began to feel more secure once again. It wasn't an immediate change, but little by little, he started to accept his body as it was. Accepting these changes didn't mean we no longer had a satisfying sexual life. On the contrary, we discovered that sex could be more pleasurable and meaningful when focused on emotional connection and mutual pleasure, rather than meeting physical expectations tied to youth. One of the most important lessons we learned through this process was that intimacy is not just about what happens between the sheets. It's about how we treat each other, how we listen and support one another. It's about being present for each other not only in good moments, but also in the challenges that aging brings. At the end of the day, what truly matters is how we make each other feel. It's true that men are often pressured by society to maintain an image of virility throughout their lives. This pressure can be overwhelming, especially when physical changes begin to manifest. However, what I would like all men to know is that their worth is not measured by the size of their penis or the strength of their erections. Their true worth lies in how they love, care for, and emotionally connect with their partners. Now, with the years I carry, I can say with certainty that sex in old age can even be more satisfying than in youth. Maturity allows us to be more patient, more understanding, and more attentive to each other's needs. It allows us to enjoy moments without the pressure to meet a particular goal. We learn to relax and enjoy the pleasure of physical contact without worrying about external expectations. One of the deepest changes was how we view the body. In youth, we often obsess over physical appearance, wanting perfect bodies, toned muscles, and maximum performance. but over time, we learned to value our bodies for what they are: containers of our experiences, our memories, and our love. My wrinkles tell a story, just like the scars of my husband and the changes in his body. In old age, the body becomes a living map marked by the adventures we've lived, the mistakes we've made, and the triumphs we've achieved. Instead of seeing it with disappointment or frustration, we choose to see it with gratitude. Every line and every change tells a story of resilience, love, and growth. My husband began to adopt a new perspective on his body and masculinity. The size of the penis was no longer a symbol of his virility, but simply a part of him that had changed over time like many other things. As he let go of society's imposed expectations, I noticed his confidence returning. This time, from a deeper place. It was no longer superficial confidence based on physical appearance or sexual performance, but confidence rooted in accepting who he truly was. With all of his transformations in our intimacy evolved as well. Although our sexual encounters became less frequent, they became deeper and more meaningful. Every time we touched, it was with more intention, as if we were celebrating the fact that, despite the years and changes, we still found ways to love and connect. We began exploring new ways to share pleasure without the pressure of achieving an erection or reaching orgasm. We discovered that true pleasure was in the act itself, in the feeling of being fully present with each other, free from expectations, simply enjoying the moment. One of the things I deeply cherish about these years is the ability to be vulnerable with one another. We openly talk about our fears and insecurities. My husband shared how difficult it has been for him to accept changes in his body, and how it made him feel less of a man in a world that often measures masculinity by the size and functionality of a penis. However, he also expressed how through our relationship he had learned that his worth did not depend on these superficial standards. I was honest with him too, telling him that although the physical changes were surprising at first, they had never affected my love or desire for him. If anything, our bond deepened as we navigated these changes together. We learned to communicate better, expressing what we needed from one another, not only in the bedroom but throughout our daily lives. This communication became key in keeping the spark alive, not just physically but emotionally. Over time, our focus shifted even more toward emotional intimacy. We became more aware of the importance of nurturing our emotions, caring for our souls as much as our bodies. We realized that sex is not just a physical act but an extension of the emotional and spiritual connection we share. When that connection is strong, the pleasure we experience becomes far more profound and fulfilling than any physical performance could offer. For my husband, accepting his body also opened the door to new forms of self-care. He began paying more attention to his overall health, not just sexual health, adopting a balanced diet, staying active, and practicing relaxation techniques that helped reduce stress and anxiety. These changes not only improved his physical well-being but also his emotional health, which ironically improved his sexual life in ways we hadn't anticipated. Stress and anxiety are often significant factors in aging sexual issues, and letting go of that pressure to perform led to a greater sense of freedom. This in turn allowed his body to respond more naturally during our moments of intimacy. One key aspect I want to highlight is that these changes didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process filled with ups and downs, moments of doubt, and small triumphs. There were days when my husband still felt frustrated with his body, moments where insecurity resurfaced. However, those moments became less frequent as we continued working on our relationship and embracing self-acceptance. We also learned to laugh at the situation. Humor became a great ally in de-escalating uncomfortable moments in the bedroom. If something didn't go as planned, we simply laughed, hugged, and continued enjoying the moment. We realized there was no need to take things too seriously. Life, after all, is full of imperfections, and that is what makes it beautiful. As we continue to age, our sexual relationship continues to evolve. It's no longer just about physical sex, but about a deeper connection that includes touch, kind words, and gestures of love. We came to understand that true pleasure isn't about the act itself, but about presence and the love we share. The journey through the changes in my husband's body became a lesson in acceptance, patience, and love. We learned to look beyond societal standards of beauty and performance value, valuing what truly matters: the connection, intimacy, and mutual respect. Every change in his body became an opportunity for growth and exploration, deepening our relationship and helping us discover new ways to express love. Today, I look back with gratitude for everything we've experienced. While youth and passionate intensity have their place, there's a beauty and serenity that only mature love can offer. A love that has withstood the test of time and emerged stronger and deeper than ever. So for any man or couple going through these changes, my message is simple. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't fear accepting what your bodies are experiencing. Remember that aging is a natural part of life, and with the right mindset, every stage can be as pleasurable and meaningful as the one before. The size of the penis, the firmness of erections, these are just physical aspects of a much larger whole. True masculinity, true connection, and true pleasure come from the ability to love and be loved, to accept and be accepted. And that, my dear, has nothing to do with the size or appearance of any part of the body. It's all about the heart and soul that go into the relationship. As we age together, we continue to learn to love and to connect. And that, for me, is the true gift of growing older.